Today on the Two Bros Lit podcast, we are in amazing moods, doing absolutely amazing because absolutely nothing is going wrong this morning.
Yeah, man, I tell you, can't hurt me.
We all have those mornings.
You can't
We all
hurt
have
me.
those mornings. Yeah, so we are reading the book Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins. And this has been one that I know I have been excited to reread for a while. And we'll get into that a little bit. Because actually, the first time that I read the book, I actually listened to it on Audible. So I have not actually read it with my eyes. Yeah, actually, I'm curious what you think about the difference between listening to a book and reading a book. Cognitively, what your opinion is on it, but let's get started.
I haven't said anything. I'm in one of those moods, man. Like
You're in a funk. It's okay. We all have that funk. I'm kind of in a funk this morning too.
I got up at 7. Usually, I get up at like 5:30. I do all my writing and my coffee time, my alone time by
You can't
7.
be David Goggins every day.
I am nowhere near David Goggins. I did pull-ups today for my workout, and
Did you do 4,021?
no. You know how he said he did 6 pull-ups on the minute, every minute?
Yeah.
So I was supposed to do 3 pull-ups with extra weight. So I went and got a 40-pound dumbbell, put it to my legs. I did 4 pull-ups, feeling all good about myself because I did 4 pull-ups at 40 extra pounds. And then I go to do my regular pull-ups without weight. I got 10 on my first set, and then I got 9 on my second set. And I was like, I am no David Goggins, that's for sure.
Way short of 4,021.
I know. And I don't have calluses on my hands like he does. So anyway.
Yeah, I was doing my CrossFit workout yesterday and my leg was hurting. And I had David Goggins in the back of my mind saying, "You mother beep, 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 you keep on going. I don't care if you're peeing brown. It doesn't matter."
Oh, man. Hey, I
have
have written down some things that he said that I wrote down some of his crazy shenanigans that he said in the book.
Yeah.
Like one was no cursing, right? So he was going through one of his buds weeks and he wasn't feeling. I guess he was in a funk too. So he said, "I sounded like a whiny bee, but I knew finding some comfort would help me hem my vahoho. So I paid no attention to the other athletes who eased through their transition." And this is talking about one of his transitions from his swim to his run in the ultra marathon or whatever. Anyway, he said a lot of those things that just made me laugh. And one other one that, to get me in a better mood, he said, you know how he said he just wanted to be the hardest guy on earth and he's always trying to get hard? So he said, "There is always more to learn, and you will always have weaknesses to strengthen if you want to become as hard as woodpecker lips."
I remember reading that woodpecker lips.
Man,
that one made me laugh.
We were on a hike yesterday, and we're in the woods, and we hear a woodpecker. So Kay's like, "Let me find the woodpecker." And you're not going to find the woodpecker. There's literally 1,000 trees. You're not going to find the woodpecker. Let's just keep walking. Anyway, those are some of the funny things that David Goggins would say throughout the book that kind of dropped some humor in the seriousness of whatever he was talking about.
Well, and he's a serious guy. I mean, you can't go through buds, which we read Make Your Bed by Admiral. I can't remember his...
You couldn't remember his name last time.
I can't remember his name. Admiral something. Anyway.
William McRaven or something like that.
Wow. Which was a great book, but he talks about it. He definitely talked about the buds experience from a more respectable viewpoint, I think.
Yeah.
Like there was a
100%.
stark difference in the way that David Goggins presented SEAL training and the way that the Admiral, I'm just going to call him, let's call him Big A.
Yeah, there you go. Big A.
The Big A, like how he presented the SEALs training, totally different. So just to start off, if you're wanting to read this book, there are almost more cuss words in this book than there are regular words in this book.
Every other word's a cuss word.
Yeah. And it makes me laugh. Well, because I'm not, and I don't know about, I'm not exactly clean mouth. Like,
oh no, I do not have a clean mouth.
Obviously, in front of children or in front of people who are offended by that kind of thing, I don't curse. Right. But like I'm not shy to say a word or two if I feel it's needed in the situation. And on this podcast, we do our best. Like, sir, sometimes a word might slip out or we use a word to describe something, but we want to be as respectful to as many people as possible. So that's the reason why we don't curse. We also have family that listens to this podcast.
They better.
Cursing is offensive to them. We have, well, one, RJ. That's all that listens.
Yeah. Thanks, RJ.
We love you, RJ. But in this book, so much cursing.
Yeah. But it's authentic.
Effective.
It's authentic.
Yeah. Authentic's a great way to describe it.
So you listened to the audiobook, right?
I listened to the audiobook maybe 3 years ago.
Did you listen to the audiobook where he actually comes on with the author and the author interviews him? That was dynamic. That was really good.
I did. And I forgot about that. Like I remember that was in addition to him reading the book. Also, something that he did that was really cool was he did this summarization at the end of each chapter. Like, these chapters were 30 40 pages long. Yeah. And then he did this summarization at the end, and he did these hashtags at the end that was like, hashtag can't hurt me, hashtag MFN goals, I don't care if I'm peeing brown. You know what I mean? Like, he did the weirdest hashtags. But
like
one of the
taking
first things,
souls, stuff like that.
Yeah. No, that was a really, really good concept. The first thing that I thought, though, that what's different about Can't Hurt Me versus any other self-help book that we've read, especially books like Let Them Theory, is he says on page 12, even the best pep talk or self-help hack is nothing but a temporary fix. It won't rewire your brain. And he says that in the book. The reason why he's writing this book, the reason he's so in your face is because he wants you to be different. Just like he was just a great big Pillsbury doughboy who had no ambition in life, who was effed up, right? He talks about his childhood being so messed up, how he could have gone down this path of loathing and self-pity, like a lot of people do, but he chose to man the F up. Like, in his words, I chose to man the F up and be something that was different. And he makes the point that you can't read a book like Let Them, which is a great book, by the way, which we reviewed, and say, oh, let them. I'm going to let them. I'm going to let them in my life. This is so great. This is fantastic. I'm going to let them. He's like, no, you have to actually do something different in your life to actually grow. And that's the reason why he wrote this book. And that's the reason why he's giving you all of his examples of how he was trying to be harder on himself, which I do have the question. Like, I know he's a hard dude. Like, he's a hard dude. And I'm sure that he did most of these things in this book. Do you think there's a little exaggeration in some areas or not?
I don't think so, man. Like, why? Why would he exaggerate? You know, I don't think he exaggerated. I think what he did is what he did. And I think he was stupid in half the stuff that he did. But, it's not for everybody to do what he... Well, first, let's just back up and talk about his early childhood, because, yeah, he did some extreme things, but he also had an extreme childhood that a lot of kids will never experience. I remember the first chapter, the second chapter, he talked about how, first of all, his dad was very abusive, was like in front of his own mom, would kiss on his girlfriends, caught his dad having sex with having sex with another woman, and mom walks in on them, but that's their everyday life. And then so the mom runs away from Trueness, their father, and goes to Brazil, Indiana. While in Brazil, Indiana, his mom met a new guy who treated him really well, was really healthy for him. He got shot in cold blood in his garage. And he talked about how back in that time, he was just able to walk onto the scene, walk into the garage, and over to the right, you see a puddle of blood where his mom's boyfriend had been shot brutally out of cold blood, probably over whatever reason why. And I think it was the very next morning or like the week later, he's on the bus and the bus runs over a kid. And as he was exiting the bus, he said he couldn't fight the urge to just look under the bus and see what the kid looked like. And said how the kid had the bus had flattened the kid's head like a pancake, and the mom was ripping her hair out. And on top of that, on top of the racism he experienced, on top of him cheating through his whole way through school and not having really any discipline in that way, he had an abnormal childhood, one that I think any other person might have never made the choice to make himself better. And so that kind of gives you the background of how David Goggins grew up and the hardships he went through that a normal human being won't go through, a normal kid won't go through. So I don't think any of that was an exaggeration. So I don't think he had any reason to exaggerate.
But why did he change? I think that was he talks about moving to Indianapolis, I think it was, playing basketball, meeting these, in his words, thugs. He learned how to dress thuggish, and then he came back to Brazil, and I think it was his junior year when he came back. Didn't make the basketball team because he had such a horrible attitude, and then all of a sudden he decided to change, and he decided that it was because he wanted to be in the military, and he had to take the ASVAB. Is that the test that he had to take?
Mm-hmm.
But I don't understand like what the clicker was for him. It didn't seem like there was a catalyst for him being a thug, in his own words, to all of a sudden completely switching and studying, going from second grade or fourth grade reading level all the way up to a high school reading level in like 2 months. Like what really, really motivated him to do that other than just something clicked in his mind? Like, did I miss something in the book as to why he made that change?
It was the accountability mirror. Remember when he
Right, but why did he do the accountability? Like, why? I don't understand why the sudden switch. Like, to me, it seemed like there wasn't something said because he was living this life of poor me. I'm going to dress like a thug. I want people to fear me, all of that. To all of a sudden, it became really important to me all of a sudden that I wanted to be in the military. In order to get in the military, I had to pass this specific test, and I just switched overnight, and I created this accountability mirror. But I think the reason that I'm asking is because a lot of people lack motivation, but they need a reason to do something. So if I'm going to run a marathon, or if I'm going to start doing CrossFit, or if I'm going to start going to the gym every day, a lot of times the people have not been going to the gym every day, and they have really never gone to the gym, which, I mean, even in his own words, he said he was never really disciplined. Mm-hmm. He never studied. He cheated his way through his first several years of high school. He didn't really work. He loved playing basketball with his buddy, but it was all street ball, in his own words. Like, he never did anything disciplined. And then all of a sudden, it seemed to me like overnight, he just switched and he became this machine where he created this accountability mirror and he's writing down the things that he wants to do. Was it literally just because he wanted to be in the military and he saw that as his only out from where he was?
Have you ever, I don't know the answer to that, but have you ever been just so fed up with how you feel or what you're doing in life that you're like, it's this is enough. I'm done with this. I'm going to, let's just use the example of sitting on the couch watching TV. All right, I've been on the couch for 8 hours straight. I've already watched 2 movies and 2 shows on Netflix. I feel like crap. I'm going to get myself off the couch. And that's when you go out and you run 5 or 6 miles or you go to the gym. I think maybe for him, and I can't speak for him, but maybe for him, he was just so fed up with how he was and how his life was going that anything would have made him feel better. And that, like he talked about shaving his head every day in front of the accountability mirror, just so that he could have a different look and feel different. And I think sometimes that motivation always leaves. Like, you're not always going to feel motivated. I didn't feel motivated to go lift weights this morning, but it was in my routine and I went and did it anyway. But I think some people will mistake that they need to be motivated to do good things, whereas all you need in place is a routine and a habit and just the choice to choose to work hard or to be disciplined rather than the choice to sit down and be lazy. So
yeah, and I know he had different moments where he, for some reason in high school, he turned a switch and he became a better person. And then it seemed like he kind of went downhill a little bit because he talks about getting that job where he was a pest control specialist, and he had no life, and he decided that he wanted to go into the SEALs, but he weighed 300 pounds. And so literally overnight, he decides he's going to lose 105 pounds in 3 months.
Just
Like,
crazy.
he just decides that he can do it.
Right.
So I think my question is, how can we apply that? Because a lot of times there has to be a catalyst, and I think catalyst is the right word, where there's something that motivates us. So take me, for example. I went about a year to a year and a half without really working out at all. I mean, we would walk the dogs on Saturdays and Sundays, and, I would do a little bit here and there, but just really didn't work out. And then at the beginning of this year, for me, the catalyst was us starting the podcast. But I started rucking at first, and I had that accountability, and you were kind of my catalyst because you were kind of keeping me accountable on that. And I rucked for about 3 weeks, I would say. And then I was like, you know what? I used to do CrossFit. I used to be pretty darn fit. Let's start seeing what happens. And then I started doing CrossFit again and doing my workouts 4 or 5 days a week. I started feeling better. I stopped rucking because my CrossFit workouts were super intense. But for me, the catalyst was being accountable to you. What was the catalyst for David Goggins, even a second time? Because he had, graduated high school, he'd gotten into the military, he had this job that he said he loved because he was solitary, he went to restaurants, killing pests, nobody bothered him, he had a wife, and his wife had a child, but then all of a sudden he just decided, kind of click, overnight, something happened in his brain that he needed to lose 105 pounds in 3 months so that he could go to SEAL training. That just doesn't happen. And is it because David Goggins is just not a normal person? And the reason that that's negative to me is because if that's just David Goggins and normal people can't have that switch, well, what's going to motivate them? Like, I consider myself a normal person. What's going to motivate me, or what can I say if I'm talking to somebody that's going to motivate them to make the positive changes that they need to make in their life? Because honestly, David Goggins isn't a great example. He's motivating. Like, sure, I look at him and be like, oh, you ran 123 miles in a Badwater race and you did it in, 25 hours. That's absolutely crazy and ridiculous. Like, you wanted to raise money for special forces, and so you wanted to enter the Badwater competition, but you were told at first you had to run 100 miles in less than 24 hours. You had zero training. In fact, the night before, you saw your buddy in the gym and you worked out for 3 hours, completely trashing your legs. Number one, who does that? But point being, the average person is not even going to come anywhere close to that. But what is the catalyst for David Goggins? Like, what switches this in his brain? And how can we take that switch and encourage other people to use it as well? Or is it just something that's remotely innate to David Goggins, and it's really nothing that we can ever hope to obtain or have?
Man, I don't have an answer for you, but everybody's life story is different. Like, we don't all have to be like David Goggins. We don't all have to do the feats of David Goggins. But you also flip it on its head, Brian. How many marriages has he been through?
That's true.
He doesn't have any.
I thought about
he doesn't have any relationship with his kids. So, great. You went and you did all these ultra endurance activities, but I believe that true happiness is coming to grips with the fact that life does not revolve around me. It doesn't revolve around my accomplishments. And in fact, my sole goal in life and my sole purpose in life is to make sure that my son can live and fulfill his dreams. And hopefully in the process of me being present and helping him be the best version of himself, then that creates the habit and the example for him to carry on that tradition. You think about legacy. David Goggins wrote this book so that he could cement his legacy in the folklore of the Navy SEALs or of the Army Ranger School or as a extreme ultra marathoner. And you could also argue that legacy is what you accomplish, but legacy is also what others accomplish because of you. And so he may help somebody with this book, but what I'm trying to argue is sometimes we don't need to be these big celebrities or these big in the eyes of others, somebody who's accomplished so much or done so many crazy things at the expense of our family. All we need to do is to live our life, be what we're meant to be, not focused on everybody else's opinion or living for everybody else, take ownership of our life. And I think that that is not the message he's trying to communicate, but yeah, I think we have to see through the fact that was and is David Goggins really happy? Was he really happy? I know at the end of the book, he talked about him laying on that bed in the hotel room and finally coming to peace with everything everybody said to him, all the racist things that were said to him, all of those things. But was he and is he really at peace? And I could argue that if you're always chasing that next high, in this case for him, ultra marathoning and ultra endurance, then you're probably never at peace.
Yeah, but I think it's so tempting to think or look at David Goggins' life. I mean, he's been on the Joe Rogan podcast. He's written multinational bestseller. He's ran umpteen ultra marathons. Like, he's a man's man. And to look at his life and not be jealous in some way and think, well, in order to accomplish something like that, I have to be completely focused 100% on me. And if that means that the relationships that I have completely go to crap, well, then so be it, because I want to be accomplished as a man. I think that's the danger in reading his book. Yes, it's extremely motivating, and the man is amazing. Like, the things that he's accomplished, went through Hell Week at Bud's 3 times. Ran 100 miles just off of his butt, like just decided I'm going to run 100 miles. And he literally said while he was running 100 miles, when he was at mile 77 or something like that, he shat all over the back of his, shorts, and he's peeing on himself, and it's not the normal color, it's brown, and it's running down his leg. And he's like, I'm going to push through this. And he does the last 23 miles of that 100-mile run. It's easy to look at that and to be like, wow, that's what I want to do. But doing so at the expense of relationships, I think it comes down to, what do you value? Like, he valued his own individual accomplishments. And although that's not bad, like, I think it's great to accomplish things in life and to feel like you are worth something and of value, but leaving people behind and cutting people off, even in the end of the book, when he's in that hospital bed and he's thinking his life, he says something to the effect of, I judged a lot of people, I hurt a lot of people. And it made me think back when we were reading Ego's the Enemy. He said, I spoke my mind. I saw where people weren't hard enough, and they would run 30 miles and I went 70 miles and I beat them down because of it. He's like, they went on to hurt my military career because I was so negative to everybody that was around me. And I think this goes back to the concept of, is relationship building more important than individual accomplishment? And although David Goggins is 1 in a million, 1 in a billion, I would say, he's more than 1 in a billion. I don't know how many people have that. He does the statement where he's like, in your average army of 100 soldiers, you have 90 that don't deserve to be there, 10 that are the hardest soldiers in the world, and one of those that is the baddest MFer in the freaking world, right?
Yep.
And he compares himself to that 1 in 100. I would say, for the things that he's accomplished, as long as he's not exaggerating, which is why I asked you that question in the beginning, I don't think he's exaggerating either. I think the way that he remembers it, it was 100% as hard, and his feats and accomplishments speak for themselves. But he's 1 in multi-billion of people who are willing to go through that kind of physical endurance. But he did say, through that experience, he focused on himself so much that he cut people off, and he was harmful and judgmental and hurt other people. Is it worth it? I think that in today's culture, there's a lot of young men who will see somebody like him, and I'm going to bring up this name. I'm not comparing him to this person at all, because I've heard David Goggins on podcasts. He's very respectful. He's very motivating, but a lot of young men are motivated by people like Andrew Tate, for example, who are just in your face. I'm right. I'm the best. You can go F yourself, that type of attitude. And that's kind of the attitude that David Goggins is presenting in this book. So I wonder, how do we motivate other people in the next generation? And obviously my son is one of those that I'm thinking about. How do we balance accomplishments with relationships? And I don't know that this is the best book to show that example. Sure, it's intensely motivating. And like I did a workout and I wouldn't have done that workout if not for David Goggins. I didn't feel like it. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
I'm like literally had David Goggins in the back of my head saying, "You get that, get on that bar."
Right.
So like he's extremely motivating, but the value, I don't know. Like I've kind of meandered in my thoughts a little bit. What do you think about the value of what he's presenting versus valuing relationships? And can you do both? I think you can. I don't think you can do it to his extreme, but I don't know.
So I talked to I used to coach professionally in Ludwigsburg, and the former BBL coach that coached the men's team called me on Thursday, I think it was, because he was looking to sign a player that I had coached in Guam. And so he calls me up and he asked me, how's this guy in the locker room? What's his attitude like? What's the tangibles that he has that aren't skill related? So we talked through, he's a great teammate. He's a hard worker. He's a gym rat, has a great attitude. He's coachable. This kid's already in I think he's 28 or 29 now. Well, he asked me, "Hey, where are you coaching right now?" And I'm like, "Well, I haven't coached for 2 years." And I kind of walked through briefly the story of me coaching. And I at the end of that, I said, the reason why I'm not coaching is because I just couldn't be away from my family as many nights that the job required me to be away from my family. And I chose instead to be more present in my family's life. And he kind of chuckled. He's like, "Oh yeah, we all got to choose what we want to do." And he went on to say, when I first started coaching, the only thing I needed to have was I needed to walk my kids to school, to kindergarten every morning, and I needed to have lunch with them. Those are the two things that I wanted to have for my family.
That was important for him.
Right. But fast forward now, he lives in another country. His wife lives here in Germany, and I'm assuming there's no relationship there, and I'm assuming that obviously he's not with his kids, and I don't know. I can't speak for him because I didn't ask him this, but I'm assuming that their family is not close and it's not a functional family. I could be totally wrong. I choose not to be that way, and so I do think that you can balance accomplishment with relationships. But I think that of all the relationships that you should never compromise, it should be the relationship with your family, your wife and your son. No matter what opportunity is out there, I believe that 20 years from now, I would have regretted every second of me not having a close relationship with my son and a close relationship with my wife. And I believed that coaching professionally would have altered that 20-year goal. So I chose to cut that out. So to answer your question, I don't think that you got to sacrifice something. You can't have everything. You can't have your cake and eat it too, whatever the expression is. I don't think that you can. And I could be totally wrong. Somebody could give me proof that they have an amazing relationship with their family and they are a CEO of a $1 billion organization or multi-million-dollar organization. For me, I could not handle that, and I could not navigate that nor balance that because of the flaws that I have as a person. I just couldn't do it.
Yeah, and I think you have to look at priorities in your life. And one thing, like, let's be clear, one of the things that he's really good about in this book is he talks about scheduling and routine. Like, he brings those two things up, and he goes into detail about how long are you sitting at, and I disagreed with this in a little bit. But he's like, how long are you sitting at the dinner table just talking about nothing? You need to be out there running. I was like, okay, but that's building relationships, sitting around the dinner table talking.
Right.
But he was also like, how long are you scrolling social media? How long are you sitting in front of the TV? How long are you, whatever, just crapping around doing absolutely nothing when you could be out running? You could be doing a workout. You could be, and that's a good point where maybe I'm not going to have the intensity, and maybe I don't have to sacrifice my family in order to accomplish physical feats and business feats and all of that. But what I can do is I can tighten up my schedule. to where I can accomplish more and yet still have a great relationship with my family at the same time. And obviously, like, I can improve on both. Like, I'm not perfect by far. I'm not, what is it? I'm always becoming. Like,
Never
I'm
arrived. You've always
growing growth.
become. Yeah, you've always become.
Right. So I still have a lot of growth that I need to do in being a good father and being a good husband, like all of that, being a good person. Like, I'm still learning. But one thing that I can do is I can tighten up my schedule in order to do things that will help me be successful. So let's take YouTube, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if I really wanted to, something that I've been thinking about for a long time is, yes, I put out clips from the podcast, but I could also put in time and effort creating YouTube videos that might be helpful. And like before, if you went to our YouTube page, before I started posting the Two Bros Lit podcast, these discussions, I posted videos on money and finances, and like, I had a decent amount of views on a lot of those videos, and I think that they were helpful to a certain demographic of people. And I could do that. And I'm saying this right now because I know I'm keeping myself accountable that, like, this is something that I need to do, but I'm lazy. Like, I need to tighten up my schedule to where I work during this time. I'm going to spend time and play board games. Like, again, I'm saying this, play board games with my family because that encourages conversation. It encourages relationships, but especially during the times when I'm at home, because I have a variable schedule and Eli's at school and Megan's at work. I could 100% every week. I have enough time to plan and coordinate and make a YouTube video on different subjects, and that would help our channel grow, and I would be helping more people. But because I'm lazy, because I don't have David Goggins, his mentality, like, I don't do it, and so that, although I don't think that it's healthy to go completely David Goggins, he definitely makes a good point in that we will be as hard as we want to be. And tightening up our routine and tightening up my schedule is definitely something that I need to do because I have the time.
Mm-hmm.
I just need to do it. I need to stop being a little whiny butt and sitting and scrolling Instagram. I need to actually do something that's of value. And maybe a video that I make is not worthwhile in 20 or 30 years, but it may be worthwhile to a few people now. It could be helpful to a few people now. So why would I not do that? I think that's what has spoken the most to me in this book. It's not, so the first time that I listened to it, I texted you 4 years
Right.
ago. I was like, I'm going to run a marathon.
Yeah.
You remember
Yeah,
that?
yeah.
I texted you. I'm like, I'm going to run a marathon in the fall. I never ended up running that marathon. This time I went through it and I didn't think, I'm going to run a marathon. I thought, you know what? I can tighten up my schedule. I can be a better person by doing less useless things. And I think that's the biggest help that this book was in my life. Overall.
You talk, just going back to social media, and I guess as men trying to find our worth. I don't know how it was 30 years ago, but I do know now that social media has defined so much about how life should be for so many people. And I feel that social media has painted this picture that in order to be successful, the only way to be successful is to be successful in the eyes of many. You need to have 1 million views on this video. You're only successful if you have, 1 million followers. But can you be content and satisfied with being successful in the eyes of one, or the eyes of two people, or the eyes of however many are in your immediate family? That's the true measure of what success looks like. I was not scrolling social media, but I found this on social media. This is the problem. Elon Musk was interviewed, and the interviewer asked Elon Musk, what's been the number one detrimental thing to humanity invented? What was the number one thing invented that has been detrimental to humanity? Do you have any guess? If I ask you that question, Brian, what is the number one thing that's the most detrimental thing to humanity? What would you say?
Social media.
Yeah, essentially he said short form video, or short viewed video. I don't know what that is. There a certain term for that? Basically,
yeah. So shorts, reels,
right. So
TikToks.
basically, he's saying that our attention spans are, nothing. We waste time on the algorithm of all these videos, and that is essentially just destroying humanity and a false perspective of what life should be. Life should be sitting around the dinner table for as long as you can, talking with your family. Life should be taking quiet time for yourself to sit on the couch and read, not to make that extra video because you feel like that's what the multiverse or the social media verse wants you to do. And we get confused on what happiness is. And I'm not saying David Goggins is trying to confuse us on what happiness is, but we have to be content with the pace of our life, and we have to be content with where we're at. That does not mean that we're lazy, that we're unmotivated, but I think we have to redefine what success is in the modern world. And I think we have it skewed a little bit just because of social media and what other people are trying to tell us this is what it means to be successful.
So how are you going to take this book and be different? Like, are there any actionable steps? Like, are you going to work out more because you want to be hard like David Goggins? Are you going to, like for me, 100% an actionable item for me is literally scheduling out my day, and 100%, like I am guilty of scrolling too much social media. And I say this, but I could be completely off. I don't even scroll social media that much.
Right.
Like I say that much. Typically my social media screening, reading, whatever,
Right.
is in the mornings when I wake up, sitting on the toilet, 20 minutes in the mornings on the toilet. When I go to bed at
20
night.
minutes on the
Before bed
toilet.
at night.
Wow.
Yeah. I have a nice ring around my butt. So 20 minutes at night. And then throughout the day, periodically, I'll pick it up. Like if I'm on an assignment and I'm waiting for the deaf patient to show up, I'll sit in the waiting room. I don't know what else to do, so I scroll social media. That could be a lot to some people. But I mean, even just talking about it myself, that's an hour a day.
Yeah.
That's literally an hour, and some days probably close to 2 hours a day that I'm just scrolling social media. I listened to Joe Rogan, and one thing that Joe Rogan has talked about is he doesn't like scrolling shorts or TikToks or reels, whatever you call them. He only likes to watch long form media, and the reason is because he actually learns something. And I think that advice is key. And YouTube actually is coming out now with a way where you can disable shorts. So they made the change about 3 years ago because of the popularity and rise of TikTok, which is only short form media. YouTube started showing shorts in search results. So before, if you wanted to watch a David Goggins presentation, or you wanted to watch the Admiral Make Your Bed speech, you would type that in and it would only fill with long form videos that were 10, 15, 20, an hour, 60 minutes long. Well, now they intersperse that. So instead of watching a conversation that David Goggins has with a podcaster that's 45 minutes long, well, now you can get a clip for 30 seconds of the best things that David Goggins said in 30 seconds during that 45-minute conversation. And in a lot of ways, it seems like, oh, well, that 30 seconds is going to be better than that 45 minutes. But I think that's what we're really coming down to, where we need to focus more on the long form. Like we need to focus more on the long walks. We need to focus more on the long talks. We need to focus more on the long workouts, not eating dinner as quickly as possible and then rushing off to watch TV or to get a workout, whatever it might be, but actually focusing on the long form of life rather than focusing on the short term of life. And I can do that by scheduling my time and tightening things up and focusing on the things that are important and admitting where I'm lazy, like admitting where I'm wrong and fixing that. And I think that's what I'm getting out of this book. Not that I need to be super David Goggins or that I need to run marathons, although that's super inspiring, but I need to tighten up my schedule to where I can do more things that are meaningful. Do you feel similarly?
Well, let me ask you this. You said you've read this book how many times? Two times? So what has changed? Because I read this book back in 2021, and it was before I moved to Germany. There's some things that's changed in my perspective. So, what is different in your perspective of the first time you read or listened to this book and the second time you read it? What has changed for you personally?
I had more, and this could be due to age, I had more of a focus on physical feats before.
Okay.
Like being wanting to look muscular, wanting to appear athletic. And definitely over the past few years, like I've definitely gone away from that to where I don't care what I look like from that perspective. I do care about being healthy,
Right.
which is the reason why I try to eat right and I try to work out every day if possible. Today's a rest day, but like I try to do as much as possible, but I don't kill myself in wads anymore like David Goggins would because I understand that killing myself isn't necessarily the best thing for my health overall. So I care much less about physical feats and looking or appearing athletic. That's the difference for me.
Mm-hmm.
What about you?
When I read this book I listened to it in 2021, it was the summer before we moved to Germany. And in 2021, everything was about me. Everything was about fulfilling my dreams, fulfilling my purpose in life. And I read or listened to the book Can't Hurt Me through the lens of how does every choice I make affect me? How can I build my life? How can I build my body? How can I have a calloused mind? How can I take
The
souls?
same. Yeah.
And then now I look at David Goggins with a little bit of pity because now I realize that maybe it's just through a little bit more maturity. I read the book not in how I read it as a memoir. I didn't read it in how I can better myself. Yeah, it's inspiring to hear him talk about all the things that he talked about, but I look now at first of all, when I was reading the whole book this time, I kept on thinking about Trina's Jr. Remember how he kind of he separated from Trina's Jr. his older brother because he went to live with his dad, and through the whole book, I was like, hey, if he doesn't bring up his brother again, then I'm gonna have to Google what happened to Trina's Jr. because he didn't hasn't talked about him
Right.
since. And so I guess 15 years later, his Trina's Jr. His daughter got shot in a parking lot just out of a rogue bullet, and they reunited because of that. And so I guess now I listened to the book more in perspective of how my choices are affecting other people, not just how my choices are affecting myself. I guess I read it the first time out of a selfish um, goal setting, and then now I read it more as having more balance so I don't become like David Goggins in the way that he has no quality relationship with anybody other than his mom. And that's not
His
wrong,
mom. Yeah.
but there's so much more richness and wealth not in what I accomplish, but in the relationships that I cultivate, namely this my wife and my son. So I guess this second time around, it wasn't as motivating personally, but it was more how can I show up better for my family in a more balanced way.
And I get that. And I kind of feel like I don't know if you read the book after this, never finished. Of course, it's been 3 or 4 years since I actually listened to that book as well. I'm probably going to go back and listen to it again. But if I remember right, the whole premise of Never Finished was he continues to take the same path. He continues to run and run and run and do all these things. And I felt like he almost made excuses as to why he didn't finish first in this race, or his guide didn't lead him down the right path. That was all his fault, but he still pushed on, even though it was somebody else's fault. Like I do, like I don't know if he's truly happy or not. I never wish evil,
Mhm.
never wish unhappiness on anybody. I truly hope. And at the end of the book, it kind of seemed like he came to this epiphany of it's not all about the racing and it's about the relationships. And I was too judgmental on people, I was too hard on people, and I need to build. So like I really hope that he has taken the path of relationships now. Maybe he has somebody special in his life. I think he does that, and he's learned from his past mistakes that he can love them. I read a little bit online about evidently his daughter's come out and said that he was never involved in her life, like ever. He was an absent father. And I hope that he's learned from that experience, but I can definitely look at his life and I can mimic the things that encourage me to be more resourceful, to be more trained, to have more character, to be a better person, to tighten up my schedule, but also learn from him from the perspective of, sure, physical feats and physical discipline are extremely important, but never at the cost of relationships. And there's a way that you can balance both. So if I want to be an ultra runner, I can do that, but I need to make sure that I'm also scheduling time with my family at the same time and not always gone to races or always gone to events to where I'm ignoring my family at the same time.
We've been talking a little bit more about long form conversation, long form videos, the long view in mind. In January, I read a book called Gradually Then Suddenly, and I mentioned a little bit of the concept of gradually then suddenly, but in that book, it talked about long vision and looking down not just the life of you and the 70 years that you might live, but how your life impacts not just your son, but your life and your choices actually impact generations down the road. And yesterday we were hiking, and the path, if you can imagine a path probably about 3 feet wide, and every 10 feet or so there was a staggered tree on the path, a staggered tree, and it made a clear path probably for about a half a mile. And those trees were no newer than 500 years old. And I look at Katie, and we were kind of dumbfounded that somebody would plant these trees for a half a mile that would make up this path. And I looked at her and I said, whoever planted these trees 500 years ago, because they were huge, never got to see the result of our joy walking that path and being just mesmerized by the beauty of these trees on the path. And they were, like I said, they're probably planted 500 years ago. So somebody's choices 500 years ago brought me some joy yesterday on the hike. Now, fast forward, this has been a concept I've been thinking about probably since January, but you look at David Goggins' life and you look at his father was not existent because of the choices he made, did not have a relationship with Goggins, didn't have a relationship with his other brother, Trunus Jr. And now look at David Goggins, and I would dare say, like you said, he doesn't have that relationship with his daughter, or if he has a son, probably doesn't have a relationship with his son. So Goggins' father never made the choice to be a present father. Because of that choice, he didn't have the example, so now he's not a present father. Now, because Goggins wasn't a present father, that could now influence his children to continue that trend from generation to generation to generation. And what I'm trying to get at is, if we have this long vision of the choices that I make today and how it impacts my son by being present, by being patient, by being involved, then that gives him the example of what it looks like and what it feels like, so he can pass that down to the next generation. And if I choose myself now and choose what I want to accomplish, then my son sees that and he repeats the same pattern, and it could continue on for generations and generations. But if I can make that choice to show up, to be present, to be intentional in that relationship, then maybe I can make my relationship with my son better, so that now his relationship with his son, my grandson, becomes better. And then it keeps going down the generations. And here I am talking with my cigar and I get ash everywhere. I won't press cancel this time. Anyway, I don't know if I'm making sense on that concept, but we have to have this long vision of how the choices I make are not just impacting Soren, but they're actually going to impact my grandson or my grandchildren, and then it will continue down for generation to generation by how I show up today. And to me, that's been profound, and it's been how I'm trying to redefine success in my life, not by what I accomplish, but by how the relationships that my future family will have with each other, because I'm making the choice now to be present, to not think about myself, and to show up for my son. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that or if that spurred any ideas, but that's something I've been contemplating since probably around the first 2 weeks of January.
Yeah, I think it brings up the question of impact. And like you talk about those trees being planted, and man, David Goggins and his book and his example is going to, it has impacted millions of people. So maybe in David Goggins' eyes, and I don't know, he seems like a really great guy. Like I have seen him on podcasts and I've seen interviews. He seems like a great dude. Like I'm not judging him from that sense at all. Maybe he's looking at it, the life that I've lived will impact millions. So I'm willing to give up my relationship with my child, my son, or my daughter, so that I can in turn impact millions. And that's how I think a lot of fathers have chosen to live their lives is, well, I'm having a greater impact over here, so therefore I can afford to give up my relationship with my child. And I don't think that I think it's about values. Like, do we value the impact that we're going to have on everybody else, or do we value the impact that we're going to have on our own family? And it's hard to argue with the fact that David Goggins has had massive impact on a lot of people. Was that worth him giving up his relationship with his daughter? We would obviously say no. I would rather have a relationship with my daughter than having an impact on millions and millions of people. But it's almost hardwired in the male brain where we need to have as much impact on as many people as possible, make as much money as possible, get in front of as many people as possible, be viewed as that male accomplished individual. I read Make It So by Patrick Stewart. I think it was about a year ago now. That's Captain Jean-Luc Picard on the Star Trek Enterprise. And I was almost disappointed because I love Star Trek. I mean, I'm freaking wearing a Star Trek shirt, right?
Yeah.
Like, no joke. Like, I didn't even think about that. NCC 1701D, USS Enterprise crew. I wore this because I wore this to Eli's soccer game yesterday. And so it already stunk a little bit. So I'm like, well, I'll smoke my cigar and then I'll throw it into dirty clothes afterwards. But I listened to his book, and he basically wasted his life all the way up until he was 70 years old, and he met his current partner, Sunny, I think her name is. And he described bouts of just nonstop drinking, nonstop unhappiness. Sure, there were moments of joy, but he ruined his relationship with his family, and he had a strained relationship with his children. He lost his wife because of his crazy schedule, because he emphasized the impact that he wanted to have on millions of people. And he did. Like, his characters in Star Trek are admirable. Like Captain Jean-Luc Picard and the decisions that he made, if you watch The Next Generation, I look at that and I'm inspired to be a better person whenever I look at Captain Jean-Luc Picard and the way that he respects people in the TV series and how he makes decisions without himself in mind that are unselfish, like all of that. And I learned from that. But then you look at the actor, Patrick Stewart, and again, I hope he's happy now. But when he was writing the book, like, he expressed frustration and he expressed a sense of longing because he had essentially wasted a lot of his life up to that point when he wrote the book. So I think that, to me, looking at David Goggins and looking at Patrick Stewart and people who have actually accomplished things in life, maybe this is even true of Elon Musk. I don't know, but the guy has 14 kids or 13 kids, something like that. What kind of relationship does, and I don't know what kind of relationship, but does the impact that we make on the world matter if we lose our own family? I think that's what it comes right down to. If we lose the people that are closest to us, does it even matter that now I'm known to millions?
So my question for you would be, would you want those millions of people to say, I read your book, you inspired me? Or would you want your son, one person, Dad, I watched your life, you inspired me? And I think that's what I've wrestled with the last couple of years is I don't want to inspire millions of people. I don't want to impact millions of people. I don't want to impact hundreds of people. I want to impact one person. And at the end of the day, I want my son to be, when he's 30 years old, to look at me and say, thank you. You inspired me because you chose me above millions of people. And I'm not saying that I'm right. Maybe but it's right for me. But I can look at, we're old enough now that we can look at people who had not made that decision to think about the millions of other people that they've impacted, or let's just say the hundreds of other people that they've impacted, but they can't impact that one person in that one life who should matter the most to them above anybody else. And I know this has kind of gotten way off topic, but it's
Well, I think it's how the book relates to us.
that's true. Yeah, right.
You know, like you talked about from 3-4 years ago, we read the book and we were inspired to accomplish physical feats. Like that's literally what it inspired us to do. It inspired us to be more influential to the masses. But now we go through this book and we think, wow, like that's a great accomplishment. You are a specimen of a human being. You are amazing. But yet to us, it's really important that we spend time with our family. And having our family close, which David Goggins has his mom close. And like you said, there's nothing wrong with having a great relationship with your mom. But he doesn't have his relationship with his child. He went through multiple marriages. Now, I'm not saying that it's all his fault. Like, we know that there's blame to go on both sides. But I think we're looking at that, and we're looking at people who have influenced millions, Patrick Stewart, for example, who come to the end of their life, and they're like, I regret that. I regret not having a relationship with their child. Now, granted, at any time, a father can reach out and reestablish that relationship with their child, but there's the decades that they missed during that process. And I think that it's a common theme that if a man decides to pursue the path of influencing others than his own home, to influencing the masses rather than focusing on his own children or his own family, that individual will feel regret later in life. And that seems to be a common theme. I think if there is a person who says, oh, I don't care that I don't have a relationship with my kids. Look at all the people that I've influenced. Literally, I say that, and the first thing that comes to my mind is, wow, that's an a-hole. He built this multi-billion-dollar company, doesn't have a relationship with his family, influenced millions of people, and then says that he doesn't care that he doesn't have a relationship with his child. Wow, that's an a-hole. So I think while we should always strive to accomplish as much as we can in our life, to make as much money as we can in our life, to be as big of an influence on people in our life, the reality is not only to not experience regret, but to be successful in our life, we have to spend that time with family and our own children and our sons and our daughters and make sure that we have that relationship with them, because whether it's biblical or whether it's just the order of things in our life, that's the purpose of being a man, is being a leader and being strong from our family. And if we happen to influence hundreds, tens, thousands, millions of other people, so be it, but not at the expense of that relationship with my own family, with my own wife, and with my own son. That's kind of how I'm looking at the book now versus how I looked with back then. So sure, we're not really going off on a tangent. I just think we're looking at it differently based on where we are in life and how it affects us in this moment versus how it affected us back then.
You know, a lot of men have sacrificed their families for a lot less than a multi-million-dollar company, or have sacrificed a lot less to influence just 25 people in your office. You know, they've sacrificed, you know, to influence maybe 10 people, or to make an extra $20,000 a year, as opposed to the millions that could be made, right? I think we're all in this illusion. We get disillusioned that we are bigger, better, badder than what we really are. And I think maybe David Goggins is trying to paint that picture that he is bigger and better and badder than what he really is, to maybe fill that hole of emptiness that he might have. I'm putting these words I'm putting these words in between the lines of the book, because I have never sat down and have a conversation with Goggins. I haven't watched very many interviews from him. I'm speaking only from the perspective of what I know, of what I've seen other men go through. Like, for instance, because I always refer back to coaching. I know coaches that they don't have a relationship with their family to coach at a Division III school. Like, you're making $25,000 or $30,000 a year, but you're going to sacrifice all this time with your family to be on the road for that, And I think we just all have to come to the conclusion of what we want to matter in our life. And I'm sure that there's going to be things that come up in the future for me, but right now, my focus is on my family. And I think every other father and every other man and husband should also have that same perspective. So, yeah.
At least that's the perspective that we have, And it's tough because, like, we're so conditioned as men to accomplish, be famous, make a lot of money, be successful. And there's so much pressure when, yes, we can be successful, we can make as much money as possible, but not at the expense of our family. I think that's the message that I'm getting out of all of this. Honestly, I don't think that there's much more to say.
Yeah, it was good. Like we read it in 1 week, right? We read it in about 6 days. It was about 350 pages, I think, around that. It was a I didn't want to put it down. Like, I would read a chapter, and I was so into the story. I remember messaging you on Sunday night, I think it was Sunday night or Monday night, saying, man, that first chapter was pretty intense. I couldn't put it down. We talked about a couple of personal things that we won't share here on the podcast, but it was a great book. And
yeah,
I just don't want to get under the impression that we all have to live a glamorous life to be happy. We don't all have to live a glamorous life to feel successful. I think we can all find success in the little things of the day-to-day life that we live, and to be content with our life, and to be content with what we're working towards as men, and in our own line of work, just to be content with that. And contentment is something that every day, if you talk about having a calloused mind and how he was trying to take souls instead of trying to live our life under the oppression of other people, live our life that we are trying to become the best version of ourselves. And right now, in order for me to be the best version of myself, I have to be content with where I'm at and who I am and what I have.
I think a good example of this, and again, I don't know him personally, but this is the picture that he paints, is Ryan Holiday. Like, we've read four of his books, but he talks often about living on his farm, spending time with his kids and his wife. He posts pictures of his family, his kids, his wife, doing fun things together. And yet that guy has also succeeded in ways that I would even say eclipse David Goggins. Like, he's written seven multi-bestsellers on Stoicism. He's written 2 bestsellers on marketing. He's written 365 Days of Stoicism. But yet I think his message is, sure, I've accomplished these things. And again, I don't know, because I don't know him personally, but it appears, yes, I've accomplished this. Yes, I've made millions, but I'm also focusing on what's important in my family. And I would have to say he's a good example.
He also, Ryan Holiday said, I don't know what book it was, but in order to have a happy life, live a hidden life. And I know Ryan Holiday is on social media, and he does, like he said, he does these videos. But I think in the current modern world, we want to living a happy life is a life in front of others in social media, painting our ideal selves on social media. But he talks about, in one of his books, we've read 4 of them already, but he said a quote that really I remember because I wrote it down. In order to live a happy life, you have to live a hidden life. And to be hidden in the modern world is to not be on social media, or to paint your life and your ideal life through social media. So we do keep coming back to social media. You don't have social media. Like, you don't have a Facebook. You have an Instagram, but you don't post anything. Has that been a choice that you kind of realize that doesn't make you happy? Or because I have Facebook, I have Instagram, I post stories here and there, but has that been a choice that you've made to become the best version of yourself, to fight the lure of trying to appear successful to others? Or what has made you not choose to be active on social media?
I stopped caring what other people thought. Like, just being honest, if I do post something on social media, which Instagram is what I post on, it's because I want those pictures and those memories for myself in the future. So I'm not posting, and there was definitely a time where I posted stuff so that people could look at my life and say, wow, you did that workout, or wow, you did that competition, or wow, you went here, whatever it might be. And I just got to the point where I'm like, does that really matter anymore? Like, what matters is me having a place where I can scroll back through my memories and feel good. And in 10 years, am I going to want to scroll back and say, I ran 5 miles today, or I did this WOD today? Like, I'm not going to care about that in 10 years. So therefore, those things I stopped posting about. And now the only things that I post on are like memorable events, big games for Eli. Like, if I want to remember this shot and we happen to capture it on video, I don't want to have to scroll through all of my pictures on my iPhone. Well, here's a moment in time, and I can post that on Instagram, and it's there for forever, as long as Instagram's a company, which I'm assuming will be a long time. And I can scroll back through and be like, oh, yeah, that's a great memory. And I found myself posting less and less because of that, because I didn't care.
It's funny.
What other people
said. It's funny because, was it this time last year, I was looking to get into a different profession, and I remember going to my Instagram, and I was like, if somebody comes to my Instagram and they're trying to hire me, what would look like I was full of myself? So I remember when I was in my early 20s and my early 30s, or late 20s and early 30s, I'd always put pictures of my cars or my motorcycles and live in that thug life, and always. But I went back and I deleted all of those pictures off my Instagram, and so you don't see those pictures anymore on my Instagram, because it didn't serve anything of value other than me just bragging about, oh, I have my favorite car that I have had in my life has been a Nissan 370Z, and it was low, it had 20s on it, had catback exhaust, had a sound system in it, and I'm always like posting like a Drake line on one of his songs and a picture of my car. It's so immature, like it's so childish to do that. So I went and deleted all those pictures because of a future opportunity that it's not happening anymore. But what if they were to look at my Instagram? What would be their first impression of me? And so I went back and I deleted all those pictures, and that was a step towards, I think, accepting the fact that I'm no longer that 20-year-old. I don't have that mindset anymore, so I don't want to be portrayed that way. And even when I stopped coaching, I took off a lot of my basketball coaching pictures, whether I might have been in a different country or with a certain team. I took all of those down because that was no longer part of, I guess, my identity. So again, I think it goes back to social media paints a different picture of rather than who we really are, and it's not happiness. Social media doesn't really show the happiness that people have in their lives.
And I remember too caring a lot more about what people thought and being disappointed that maybe I wasn't invited to the specific group that was going out, or not many people liked this photo, or not many people commented on this photo. And like, I cared a lot more about that until like I realized like none of that matters. People in general only care about themselves and how they appear to other people. And so therefore, why should I care if a certain number of people like my photo or comment on my photo? And I just got to where the point I didn't care anymore. I think that's the reason why I stopped, We did not go into the cigar, so let's end off with the cigar that we smoked.
I just threw mine out.
I wanted to...
I literally just threw mine out.
Well,
I'll pull my wrapper back up.
I wanted to This was a really good cigar. I am smoking the All
Oh
Saints. Remember we
yeah,
talked about the All
yeah.
Saints before? And this is actually the All Saints dedication. And it's an excellent cigar. I forgot to bring that up in the very beginning, but really, really good. Really enjoyed it, and I have more, and I'm gonna have to make sure that I save some so
Yeah.
you can smoke them because they're very, very good. If I'm right, if I remember right, they're actually made by Perdomo cigars.
Perdomo. Nice.
Yeah,
Okay.
but
Okay.
they're excellent. But I think it's not necessarily the best leaves. You know, like Perdomo saves their 30th and their legacy, like the best leaves
Hmm.
for themselves, but they have almost as good leaves that they use, and I think that's what they have done with the All Saints cigars line. So really, really good. But
I
what did you smoke
smoked a
before we end off?
Perdomo. Where are we at here? A Perdomo, Connecticut. This one was. I went.
Oh no, that's the Nicaragua. Oh, it was Connecticut, you're right?
I
But it was the
went to the
Nicaraguan
cigar shop
cigar.
yesterday, and I told you already the story. But I got what 4 or 5 Perdomo, and I got the sun dried Perdomo Maduro, and then this one's the Connecticut. And then I saw on the shelf a 30th anniversary, and you have been talking about this 30th anniversary forever. And I look at it, and I'm okay. I'm just gonna pick one up. And how in Germany how they do it is they have these price tags, and they take the price tag and the cigar and the individual stick, they take it to the register to check you out. Well, she picked up for the 30th anniversary, the Perdomo, a €6.50 price tag. And I'm like, that's for sure not 6.50. So she went and she rung
Right.
me up, and I'm walking out of the cigar shop, and Kitty and Soren were with me, and I said, she only charged me 6.50 for a 30th anniversary. I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna get 6 more. So I went back and
Yeah.
I said I'd like to get 6 more of the 30th. So she went over there. She didn't put the price tag back, and she looked at the 30th anniversary, and then she went back to the back office and started typing away on her computer. She came back and she's like, "Well, the price is €17.90 or something like that, which comes out to like $21 or
Right.
something."
Yep.
I,
Which
and
is
I was like,
the right
yeah, I
price.
think I'm going to pass on this. But I was hoping I would get
Yeah.
6 more 30th anniversary for €6 a piece, which would be a steal. But I also
Yep.
got a Camacho, and I got a Buena Vista because you smoked a Buena Vista a couple episodes ago, I think, right? So I will
Right.
smoke
Yeah.
that one in the
Yeah.
future, and just trying to be like you, man.
How much was the Buena Vista?
I
Or
think
It's
it was
Buena
like nine
Vista.
euro or something like that. But I also
Hmm.
this week I ordered the Bovita packets for my humidor, and it went
Right.
from 60% humidity up to about 68%. And I had a
That's perfect.
72% Bovito right.
Vita
So I
pack.
put
Hmm.
another one in to try to get the humidity up because my 20th anniversary Perdomo is pretty dry, and so trying to get more humidity into my humidor.
So the next book that we're going to be reading is going to be Meditations, right, by Marcus Aurelius. We're doing a very specific translation. I think it's
Yes,
Gregory
Gregory Hayes.
Hayes. Gregory Hayes. Forward is actually by Ryan Holiday. I want to read that book really bad. And so we decided we're going to read that one. And then actually the book after that I have right here is going to be Rich Dad Poor Dad, which I'm excited about reading as well. But we wanted to do a financial book. And then after that, we're going to be reading The Simple Path to Wealth by
Mm-hmm.
J.L. Collins. And one of the reasons why I'm excited about that is because Rich Dad Poor Dad focuses a lot on investing in real estate. And then J.L. Collins, of course, the book is all about investing in the stock market and how it only makes sense to invest in index funds and things like that. So I'm super excited about that. What we have to look forward to. So we'll record that in a couple weeks and get on it. Any closing
No,
thoughts?
man. These books are. I'm so. Yeah, I think we said this last week, so I won't repeat it. But your idea to go through these books has opened up a can of worms with just not just mindset, but some vulnerability of you as a father and you as a person. And just thank you for being open. And these conversations I look forward to every single week. So thank you for the great
Yeah.
deepness and conversation.
No, and I appreciate it because I think one of the things these conversations make me realize is where moments where I'm wrong. And like I recognize that. And like we do social media for Two Bros Lit, and I post things, and I post it because I want us to look super smart, right? I clip them, edit them, post them on social media, and oh wow, Brian made this really deep thought. He must be so smart. Or Brent made this really, awesome quote or whatever. And that's just the front that we present. Like I look down deep and like I still have things that I can improve on. And these conversations are 100% a help because I'm not going to be this super person just in 3 months. Like I've definitely just between not just between me and you, anybody who listens to this as well, or anybody who made it to the end of the podcast, but I've definitely improved. Even like since January, like I'm looking at decisions that I make, ways that I act, priorities that I make, schedule, like all of that, and like I've definitely improved. But I still have ways to go. I still can be a better person, better father, better friend, better brother, like all of that. And I'm learning how to do so. And I'm learning to not let my emotions take over. I'm learning to not, be so controlling. I'm learning not to be so opinionated. I'm learning, all of this. Like, for example, yesterday, Eli had a game where the ref was just awful awful. I can't emphasize how awful they were. And I keep my mouth shut. I always do at games. Like every now and again, I'll be like, if a boy comes up to one of our boys and shoves them on the ground, and the ref doesn't call, I'll be like, hey, like how'd you miss that, or something like that. But yesterday, the ref was like overly biased and was refusing to make calls. And like that pissed me off so bad to the point to where I was like speaking to the ref, and every call that she missed that one again, or so we had a header call, like I'm revealing, but she called a header on us where the ball rolled up one of our boys' chest and it kind of grazed his face and went over his head. She said that was a header and it touched his head. Okay, so it did touch his head, right? I get that. You called it a header, fine. That's the bar that you're setting. That's a weak bar. Didn't say anything. And then literally 2 plays later, on their side, literally the ball rolled up and smacked the kid in the face and dropped to the ground, and she didn't call it a header. And she's standing right there. And so I yelled out, "How is that not a header?" And she looked over at me and she went like this. And I was like, oh, it's on. Like, really? And so now I try to give refs the benefit of the doubt. Like, okay, I can see how you would maybe not call this or not call that. And like one of our boys, for example, came to the ball and used his shoulder. And that's something that we teach the boys to do, is shoulder to shoulder contact is a great thing in soccer. You can push players off the ball. Now, granted, you have to play the ball. You can't just shove players out. I mean, there's some room for that. And so one of our boys came in going after the ball, and he led with his shoulder. He didn't even lead with his shoulder. He was straight up and down. And the boy fell over and she called a foul. And I was like, shoulder to shoulder contact is not a foul. And she looked over at me and she went like this again. And I was like, and I was like, how can you call that? Like, that's ridiculous. So that was not right on my
Not being
part,
very stoic,
right?
Brian.
I'm not being stoic at all. So like I recognize that, and I admit that I was a bit over aggressive yesterday. Granted, it was in response to how horrible, like this person was literally the worst ref I think we've ever had, and was like overtly biased. And that just, I think it comes down to my sense of fairness. Yeah. Like we've talked about that before, my sense of justice. Literally, you're going to call that 2 plays later. You don't call that, and it's literally the same thing. And you saw it, like you recognize it. You were standing 3 feet away and you saw it smack them in the face, and you don't call a header yet. Like, that it gets to my sense of justice, but I need to learn that in 10 years, that game's not going to matter. Whether or not they won, whether or not that ref was fair, it doesn't matter. So me saying something just makes me look worse and shows my character and how I need to grow, rather than just letting it go and being like, you know what? They're obviously biased and they obviously have issues. Let's just play the game, and I don't need to call out their, inadequacies.
Right.
I don't need to point that out. Things like that are examples of where I am improving, recognizing where I'm wrong and how I can be better and be a better person overall. So I appreciate these conversations as well.
Thanks, man.
So thank
no
you
worries.
very much.
Get to reading.
Yeah.
Get to reading.
Yeah. Until the next episode. See you then.